Hi everyone, Stefan Schuster here with the Journey Running Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us once again. For today's show, we are joined by Journey Running Podcast alumni, David Braunlich. So thank you for being here, Dave. Today what I'd like to do is have a civil discussion about the Western States 100-mile endurance run lotteries and the Hardrock 100-mile endurance run lottery. In particular, what I'd really like to talk about is lottery design. I think we're all on the same page here in terms of wanting to make these lotteries as fair as possible. Not making this episode in any way, shape, or form to talk about like how, if I agree or disagree with how the lotteries are right now. It's more so just to try and make this better for the sport as a whole. I would also like to talk about the Leadville 100 lottery, and then discuss topics such as gender equity in the sport, volunteer work, and how that contributes to lottery odds, and additionally, previous finishes and whether or not being a finisher of a race should or should not impact your lottery odds, and how that can or can't do so. For the purposes of this episode, we're going to leave out UTMB and just focus on U.S. races here. And the three lotteries I just talked about, once again, Western States 100, Hardrock, and Leadville, I think are the Hardrock and Leadville are the three most popular lotteries. What are your thoughts on that, Dave? Does all this sound good for today?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
Cool. So as I told you before, Dave, I am very comfortable talking about actually what where I would like to see these lotteries go in the future. I do have a design I think that would be much more fair than the current concept that Western States and Hardrock in particular follow. And then Leadville actually they don't really say what their process for the lottery is. They just tell everyone if they're in or not, which is another subject on its own. Mm-hmm. But what I'd really like to see from all these lotteries, I guess in that case, is number one, transparency, which I think Western States is by far the most transparent of all the lotteries because they literally have everybody's name in an actual...
Streamed live on YouTube.
Yeah, streamed live on YouTube in actual paper format. Everyone actually has like a real paper ticket for however many entries they have into the race. But for the others, like Hardrock, that one's electronic. I know races like High Lonesome are also electronic. I think High Lonesome's cool because they have like an open source code. So like if you're a software guy, or gal, you can take a look at that and actually see how the lottery works. So don't really have a problem with that stuff, but would really like to talk about how those lotteries... We're watching the World Cup, by the way. As we record this, Messi just scored, but... Argentina's up 1-0, but you guys probably don't care by the time you hear this. You're going to know who won. So first of all, I'd like to talk about the design of these lotteries, because right now, as for people who are not aware, Western States and Hardrock work very similar, where if it's your first time applying, you have one ticket, and then two tickets, and then 4, then 8, 16, 32.
2 to the n minus 1.
Exactly. Exponential. It's just exponents from grade school or whatever. So that's really how it works. And depending on how many times you have qualified, that impacts how many times you are able to enter each of the races. And so Hardrock's a little different from Western States, though, in that with Hardrock, they differentiate between if you're a finisher or not, and that highly impacts your chances. For example, I have up the 2023 odds for a female never lottery. So if it's your first time applying, let's see, if you were a one ticket holder, female, never applied, you have a 0.5% chance to get in. If you are a 2 ticket holder, female, never applied to Hardrock, never gotten in, I should say, and run, you have 2 tickets now, you have 1.1% chance, and then 3, you have 2.1. Now, if you are a female, but you have finished the Hardrock 100 endurance run, and you have looks like this year they don't have any 1 ticket holders for that, but they have a few 2 ticket holders. And if you have 2 tickets, you have 12.8% chance, and then 18.6 if you have percent chance if you have 3 tickets. So that is very different from the individuals who have never finished. You go from like 0.5 to 12, and then, 1.1 to 12%, and then 2.1 to 18% if you have finished or not finished. If you are a male and you have never run Hardrock, and you enter your first ticket, you have a 0.4% chance. With 2 tickets, you have a 0.7% chance. With 4 tickets, you have a 1.4% chance. Compared to if you are a male and you have finished Hardrock, you have if you have 1 ticket, that goes up to 6.7% chance. If you have 2 tickets, that goes up to 12.9% chance. And if you have 3 tickets, that goes up to 18.8% chance. So whether you have finished or not Hardrock, this massively plays into your odds, what your odds are in terms of getting into the race or not. With Western States, they don't do that. They just do 1, 2, 4, 8 exponents. One thing that's interesting about Western States, though, is, and I didn't really look at the data for Hardrock, though I would assume it's similar, is that if you're entering Western States, there are 3,000, so overall there are 7,169 entrants into the 2023 Western States 100-mile endurance run. However, out of that 7,169, almost half, so 3,560 entrants are 1 ticket holders, and then 1,578 are 2 ticket holders, and then 731 are 4 ticket holders. So that's the first basically 3 years of your attempts to enter Western States. And I think that is really significant thing to note, because even though there are 7,000, so there's 7,169 entrants, and that pertains to individuals who are applying to the lottery. There are like 41,000 tickets, and that encompasses all of the tickets that all of those 7,000-ish individuals hold. But I think that's worth noting, because if I'm going to say what I would like to see in the lotteries, and I'd love to hear Dave's commentary, but I would really love to see Western States and Hardrock actually just tell everybody, if you're a first year, a second year, or even a third year potentially, that you have 0% chance of getting in, but it's still necessary to qualify and apply for the first 3 years, even though you're not going to get in, because we want to see your dedication to wanting to run this race. And I think that's really important, because people who are 4 years, 5 years, 6 years plus into this sport with like 256 tickets in the Western States, they should have a much higher chance to get into Western States and Hardrock for that matter than individuals who are just throwing in a ticket because all of their friends are. That's just not fair to the individual who has put in like so many years of dedication into qualifying and just emotional energy into wanting to run these races. And I realize life isn't fair, but in these instances, we have the opportunity to make this sport more fair. Dave, I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything I just said and how that would impact these lotteries.
Sure. The Western States Lottery, I guess we're going to start with that one. Yeah, I think of the lotteries, I think they are the most fair and transparent. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I know we talked about this a little bit before about, well, if you have 1 ticket, well, you shouldn't get picked. And for most people, I mean, your probability of getting picked with 1 ticket is effectively 0. I know some people with 1 ticket do get picked, but the vast majority don't. Vast majority of people with 2 or 4 or even 8, 16 don't get picked. So I don't know how much that'll really help by just telling people with 1, 2, 3 years that, hey, you won't get in. Probably also drive down the number of people who apply in the first place, which, hey, might be a good thing for people like us who are on years 3 and 4 of applying. And, you know, even this year, I'm like with 4, I guess this is my 4th time time through the lottery. And the lottery is this morning that we recorded. So I don't know. We might be a little bit salty today. So.
Well, I really wanted to record this episode a few days ago just because I didn't want to make any sort of comment like people who are applying for the third year should have 0% chance after not getting in on my third try. So I apologize for that. But this is a thought that I've had for a long time. And I just want to clarify a few things. First of all, I'm like not anti one ticket individuals like necessarily getting into the race. Western States is, I'm sure, a great experience. But the thing is, there's a lot of awesome 100 milers in this country that aren't Western States that would also be a great experience that don't require lotteries and that don't take away from individuals who are not me, who are on their 5th, 6th, 7th attempt at Western States. Those guys should be getting in. Because if I'm one of those guys with like 128 tickets or 64 tickets even, and I see a one ticket holder getting in, I'm angry because I'm like, I've been putting in years of effort and this person just is running my dream race because their friends put in and they happen to be the lucky draw. I guess, there's probably a little bit of saltiness in my tone here. But,
right.
I mean, so you don't think, though, that one ticket holder should not have a chance? You think they should still?
I guess they should have a chance, and they have a very small chance at that. So
right.
I think the way that they have it is fine. I'm glad they did away with the consecutive years thing. It used to be where you had to put in the lottery in consecutive years, which means that you had to run a qualifier every year. And then if you didn't run a qualifier or you didn't after a qualifier or you got injured or whatever, you would go back to 0. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad they did away with that. It definitely takes some of the pressure off of like having to run a qualifier every year to do the race. So I think, of the ones we're going to talk about, I definitely think that Western States is the most fair and the most transparent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. How do you think previous finishers should play in? Because my take is, so Western States doesn't really have a policy on that. I mean, they have some, like if you volunteer and stuff, like discretionary slots, they make if you're like a 256 ticket holder and you don't get in, we just saw them put that person first on the wait list. So essentially that individual's in, which is cool. I think that a lottery that we can learn something from is High Lonesome, who I'd like to read this off actually, because it's
I'm not sure all of the,
it's a fascinating
of their lottery.
Yeah, I like so High Lonesome Lottery is fascinating in that of course my phone deleted the tab that I had open. That's great.
You can edit it out.
What was that?
You can edit this out.
Yeah, I'll probably edit this out. But give me 1 second here. So one thing that I really appreciate about the High Lonesome Lottery is that if you go on their website, they have a whole page dedicated to lottery design. And one of the things I think is really cool is that, yes, they differentiate between previous finishers and previous unsuccessful applicants. But one thing I like about the previous finishers is that I'm just going to read it off because I think this is cool. So, how many times have you finished High Lonesome 100? We will award previous finishers a boost until they have finished High Lonesome 3 times. Then the boost decreases. In parentheses, we love returning runners, but after a while, it's cool to give others a chance. End parentheses.
I remember reading that on there like years ago when I applied for their lottery.
So Western doesn't really have a policy on this, but Hardrock, like as we just discussed and went over the numbers, massively boosts the finisher, like previous finishers' chance of getting in. I think that they could really learn something from High Lonesome. And that's not to knock the Hardrock race.
I don't think they will, though.
I don't think they will. I'm not knocking the race. I just think that it would be great to make the lottery a little more fair for people who have not run the race. Because if you're running it for the 5th time, that might be your 5th Hardrock memory when you're done. But there are individuals out there who are just trying to make one memory that they can die with, really. And maybe saying that they can die with is a bit harsh, but just something that they can have for the rest of their life and carry with them.
Right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't really remember too many of the specifics of the High Lonesome Lottery. All I really know is I entered the Highland Lottery in the fall of 2019, and I got picked, and then the race got canceled in 2020, and then my entry rolled over to 2021, and I got to run the race. And I feel fortunate that I was able to get in kind of early on within the first few years of them having the race, because I feel like going forward it's going to be a lot harder to get into that race.
Yeah, especially with that race being a bit newer. But I'm sure it's like nice knowing like you finished, you have a better chance, slightly better chance to get in.
I haven't put in, my philosophy was like, hey, I got to run the race, and I thought about putting in for this year, but I might have some other things that I want to do. And it's like, okay, well, I ran the race, and, they don't have a whole lot of spots. So, there's a lot of other people who want to run the race, so they can have a chance at it.
Yeah, I like that take. Do you think that, that Western states, for example, just because they're transparent about their lottery, do you think that they should have another category for people who have finished? No? Okay.
No.
I was just wondering. And then, I'm not sure what I was going to ask.
Should they have a category for people who finished? I just think that's kind of, I don't know, unfair. I guess the benefit is you might be running next to someone who's done the race. But is that really is it really worth the benefit of not letting new people try to run the race?
So I should say my problem with the one ticket holders was that 3,500 number drops off so much in year 2, because that means that one ticket holders are often applying and then not applying for a second year, which means they're not taking the lottery very seriously.
Yeah, but how many one ticket holders got into Western States this year versus how many applied?
Whatever the number is,
it's got to be what, 20, 30 of 3,000.
But the number
that's less than 1%. It's not that many people.
But that's still people who are more experienced who could have gotten in.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that's fine.
I appreciate the take.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
It's different than mine, but
I think it's fine. I don't know. Yeah, the more I thought about it, I don't know if it's good to just tell people, oh, well, you can put in, but you have a 0% chance of getting in, when you already have basically a 0% chance. I mean, it's less than 1% chance of getting in with one ticket. So I don't think it makes too much of a difference.
There are a few other points on that I would like to throw in there.
Sure.
So the first one is it makes it easier for registrants to decide what they're doing next year rather than wait for a lottery, where they're like, what if I get in? Then I have to pay for 2 races instead of 1 if they're looking at 2. And that also is better for, I would argue, race directors who are trying to predict how many people they're going to have at a race the next year, because oftentimes their participants are waiting to hear back from lottery systems.
Well, I know most races now, that the other races that have lotteries, I know Highland, they used to do their lottery before Western States, and then they changed it to after.
Right. So that impacts how other races do things too. It's like the earlier that the big races do their lotteries, the better it is for the rest of the sport, I think. Mm-hmm. But so let's stick on High Lonesome for a quick moment, though. One thing that they also have is like a gender equality policy where like 50, I'm pretty sure it's like 50-50 split over there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the sport is not a 50-50 split. I believe it is like best majority male compared to female.
Maybe 65-35.
Yeah, it's not like a crazy difference. Head, yeah. It might not even be that high, but
I mean, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
65-35.
I thought it was like 55-45, but
okay.
Should have probably looked that up before this. But
I think it's more than that, just off the top of my head. But
either way, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think it's kind of unfair. I think it should be proportional to the applicants in the lottery. Is the most fair way to do it.
That was my thought too. I don't think that it's unpopular. I think to the wrong people, they would take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Or even if you disagree, that's fine. But like, it's how you disagree too, because it's like.
Well, I remember
saying that's unfair versus I disagree are two different ways to disagree.
Well, I remember when I first heard that, and people were like, "Oh, their lottery, it's so inclusive and so fair." It's like, well, I don't know about that, and I don't know. I just think it should be proportional to the applicants who apply, and I'm pretty sure that's what Hard Rock does now. But that's probably the only thing that they are doing right with their lottery.
Do they? I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for reference, we're recording this on December 3rd of 2022, and Courtney Dauwalter was the number one pick drawn. I think that there are definitely some questions raised about that at Hard Rock.
Yeah, how many names that we saw come up were like recognizable names in ultra running. It just like reeks of nepotism and them wanting to, have like names that people know at their race, which is fine. I mean, that if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But to the rest of us who don't have a name like that, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, and just to like clarify once again, we're not here to like talk negatively per se about the races. We're just talking facts, and we're talking how can we make this fair for everybody, because there's a lot of people in this sport who really want to do like 2 or 3 races in particular in this country, and like how can we make it fair for everybody to have the ability to do that? And when you see an electronic lottery versus a paper lottery, I'm talking Western states versus Hard Rock as the electronic and Western as like the paper, it definitely raises some questions when one has so many familiar recognizable faces in there and the other doesn't. And granted, like people who are very talented, like Francois and Courtney and Killian, they all are finishers and therefore have greater chances at Hard Rock, which is also, as we already discussed, part of the problem. So it might not even be nepotism, but just the chances are greater because they finished because they had talent previously. But in like 50 years, they're still going to be finishers and have greater chances because when they were in their 20s, for example, performed well.
Well, that's the other thing with Hard Rock is just between the fact that it takes you so long to get in the race and, the kind of good old boys club that they got going on down there, a lot of the people who toe the line are older, and, it's good that they're starting a race at those ages, but a lot of them DNF, and I feel like a lot of them just end up, people who have done it like 10 times, like I've DNF'd 7 times and have finished 3 times. I feel like those people can, let some younger people get a chance to run that race.
So I got a good question for you, Dave. Some knowledge that was bestowed upon me was that Hard Rock, I don't know if this is true or not, but Hard Rock wants more, or essentially like an equal amount of like never finishers versus finishers to run the race, because their theory that I was told was finishers will help non-finishers finish, and that will make it a safer racing environment for everybody involved. What are your thoughts to that argument as to, hey, we should have more finishers in this race for that reason?
I don't know how much I buy that, considering that you have to run a qualifier. It's not like Leadville where you can just, be drunk on New Year's Eve and sign up for the lottery and get in. It's like you have the qualifiers for Hard Rock. These are pretty hard races in and of themselves. So like, I think if you've run a qualifier for Hard Rock, you're definitely capable of doing that race. I've backpacked that course, so I'm familiar with it, and it's definitely a step up from any race I've done. Like it's more exposed, it's high up, the terrain in some places is quite challenging, and the weather can be really bad. So there might be some merit to that, but I don't know. I think if you can run and finish a qualifier, that you can finish that race, and you don't need someone to hold your hand to do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think my qualifiers so far have been like Mogollon and Bighorn and the Bear, and those have all been extremely challenging in very different ways. Mm-hmm. And when I think back of races that I've run in the past, how many times have people helped me because of course experience or because of or like specifically pertaining to course experience, I think that number is very small. I think that the people who have helped me for the simple fact that they have experience, and everyone who has the ability to apply for a race like Hardrock, it has experience. So I don't think specific race course experience is going to take people or like make the race that much safer.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think about how volunteering impacts your odds in these races?
I definitely think it's a good way for these races to get more volunteers. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that when you have individuals who are contributing to the success of your race or your business per se, because races are still businesses to an extent, then you want to make sure to reward the people who are helping you accomplish your goal of having successful races in the past. I think I have a hard time speaking on this because I haven't tried very hard to do it, but I do think that becomes problematic when you have races make it difficult to get a volunteer spot at, though, because volunteering, when everyone knows that volunteering for a race like Hardrock or Leadville, for example, will increase your odds of getting into those races, all of a sudden volunteering for the sake of volunteering isn't the reason you're volunteering, but volunteering for the sake of increasing your lottery odds is the reason that you're now showing up, which is its own moral conversation, I think. But you could probably do a whole podcast about that itself. But what I'm trying to ask the question of is, I'm trying to figure out how to state this, is like,
is it fair?
Yeah, still, like, the question becomes, is it fair because of how the volunteering works? Because, yes, volunteering should increase your odds like we just talked about, but at the same time, like, if trying to get a volunteer spot itself is really difficult because everyone's trying to increase their odds, like, all of a sudden you have all these people that want to volunteer, but not for, like, the right reason. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how many people are doing it for that, though. Like, at the end of the day, you're volunteering, like, you know, you're still going out there to help the race and, you know, be part of the community. So I don't know how many people are. I guess it'll give people some extra incentive, but I think you still have to want to volunteer.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Either way, it's good for the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, like, you know, we run with HPRS a lot, and, you know, you can earn basically free races and for not that much volunteering. We have a really generous policy. So, you know, I think just a slight increase in your lottery chances for some of these races is really the least that they can do to if you volunteer for them.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that what HPRS has is becoming more standard in the sport, which is like paying you. It's essentially paying you to volunteer. Yeah. I think that's becoming a norm, especially as we've seen a lot of races here in 2022 really struggle for volunteers. And rather than just go out and look on like LinkedIn for random people to cover your volunteer, quote unquote, volunteer slots, it's a lot easier to ask runners who know the sport and can actually help participants like get to the finish line, be the people who are at the aid stations. Mm-hmm. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever thought about, like, if you were going to change one thing in the lottery designs, how you would do it?
Not really. I don't know, man. Sorry.
No, you're good. And then the other question I had for you was, so Leadville is its own animal, really, because they don't they don't tell you how their lottery works. They could handpick it for all we know. They could actually be raffling in some secret room and then putting everyone's names who are very genuinely picked, put on a billboard, or they could be doing it electronically. They just don't really say how they're doing it, and that's frustrating. I don't know. I've applied 4 times now.
Really?
3 or 4 times now. think 3 times maybe. COVID kind of screwed everything up. So 2020, 2020 was 2020, and then they had a second lottery in 2021, but it was smaller because the 2020 lottery didn't. Yeah, a lot of rollovers, and then 2022. So I'm on 3 times, I guess, and then I'll probably enter this year.
Yeah, so I just entered the Leadville lottery like an hour ago. So I entered the Leadville lottery for the 2018 race, and I got in, so 1 for 1. Leadville is a little bit different because they have so many more people they can start. They can start like 700 runners, where like Western States is like 369, and Hardrock is like not even 200, and same with High Lonesome.
Right. I would like to say your chances are doubled, but they don't tell you how many people
I've heard a few
entered.
things about I don't know if this is true or not, but one thing I've heard is you have a better chance of getting in if you live in Colorado because they think you're more likely to go to their camps or whatever. I don't know how true that is, but that's one rumor I've heard. That surprises me that you've tried to get in the lottery 4 times and you haven't got in. And I've also heard that it's like 50-50 if you get in or not.
Well, you could call it, I guess you could call it 2 real attempts. So 2020 and 2022. And then 2021 was like, they had so many rollovers, I would think, from 2020 that my odds were probably lower just because of that, which is not on really their fault at all. But, after this podcast is over, I'm probably going to be applying today.
Okay. Yeah, get your name in the hat.
Yeah, dude, I want to do it. It's like a dream race too. But I would also like really love to see what the odds are, because I remember in 2020, in January, when I went to the lottery drawing, it was my first time applying to the race. I went up to Boulder. I went running with my Anton shirt on, and unfortunately he couldn't make it that day, which is okay. He had some personal stuff going on.
I'm sure.
But I remember going nonetheless, and they're showing the entrance on like a giant projector or like just computer screen or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I can't remember. Anyways, all the names were on a screen, and they were just like rolling the names out. And I was like, so you pick these names obviously before this presentation,
right?
But you're not saying in any way, shape, or form how. And that was just really, I remember seeing that and I was like, okay, I'm not picked, and that's fine. But like, how did you pick these people? As I would really like to just know that it's fair. I mean, this is a sport that I care a lot about. I know you do. And this is bigger than just me. It's about making it fair for the masses who are just numbers in the sport rather than just big names or people who have YouTube channels.
Yeah, and you like to think that all the lotteries are fair, but I know for a fact that if you know someone who's on the board, like you can get preferential treatment in the lottery. Like I know that for a fact because this happened to me. I'm not gonna say which race, but I know that goes on.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, and I'm sure it goes on with Leadville and. I don't know. I don't want to falsely accuse anything.
I don't even think there's
we know it goes. I don't think we have to speculate too much to know that goes on with Hardrock.
Right. I mean, Courtney is the number 1 pick to get in.
It's like they're just like mocking everyone else.
I'm sorry. That's just like
first overall pick in the Hardrock draft.
That's a lot. Yeah. I mean, like this year with seeing that's like a step up from we have a fair lottery to we have a fair lottery, but here's this, guys. I love Courtney, by the way. I can't wait to see what she does at Hardrock, but like for real, that's a little bit that's just like arrogant, really. That's how it comes across, at least I think. But anyways, much love to all these races. Really just trying to come up with ways to make it more fair as possible for people to get in.
But like at the end of the day, it's up to the races to do whatever they want to do. I mean, like Hardrock, they could just open up their 150 spots or whatever to the highest bidders if they wanted to and make a lot more money. So at least they don't do that.
That is very true. I guess I appreciate what they're doing now over doing that. Being in grad school driving Uber, I would not be the highest bidder. Uh, so definitely appreciate this system over that. But if you are listening, I don't know, do you want to cover any more topics while we're here, Dave?
Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah. I know we covered a lot, everything from lottery design to gender equality to have you finished or not, how that should impact your odds. Same with volunteering. At the end of the day, the goal is to make lotteries and this sport as fair as possible for everybody, but I would also say for individuals who have put a lot of time and effort and energy into this sport, we want to make sure, at least I think that it's important to make sure that they get their fair chance at running these races.
And I think at the end of the day, like the 2 to the n-1 systems that most of them have is fair, because if you put in enough time and dedication, you will eventually get to run the race. And yeah, it's unfair. Someone can get into Western States on their first try, but I don't think there's a more fair way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
the fact that it's changed up to this point is good signs.
Just because someone had to wait 8 years to get into Western States doesn't mean that everybody should.
Yeah. So there is hope. And if you put in the work, you're eventually going to get in. That's really the fact of it all. But just because it's gotten better doesn't mean that we can't help by having discussions that advance progress a little faster than maybe it would have otherwise happened.
Yeah, and one more thing about these lotteries. I think, like, these races, like the Hardrocks, Western States, that have these lotteries, if they didn't have them, if you could just sign up and do them, like, I don't know if they would have the same appeal. I think there's a lot of people who it's just want to do it for the prestige or like how hard it is to get into, because there's so many cool races out there that don't have lotteries, and you can even sign up the day of still.
Yeah, that's really true.
There's so many races out there. And honestly, like for me, like Western States would not be the top of my list of races to do if it didn't have all the clout that it has around it.
Let's end this episode by dedicating a few minutes to races that are not those 3 that we just talked about.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
and yeah, just talk about how awesome some of the races that we've done that are not like, that don't require lotteries maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. I would say my number, give me 2 seconds here. I could think of my first 2, 3. Okay, my first 3. I'll go first, I guess.
Sure.
First 3, not in any particular order of how awesome they are, but Silver Heels 100, Bighorn 100, and Bear 100, all just totally awesome races that don't require a lottery. Just had a fantastic time. Oh, I got to put Mogollon on there as my number 4. Just no particular order. Had a great time at all of those. So much fun. Such great communities that put those races on. All very different from each other, but unique in their own way. And just great races that people can do to, just enjoy the sport without like worrying about an entry.
Mm.
What would yours be?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I guess we'll stick with hundreds to kind of keep the list shorter for now. Yeah, so I've done Mogollon. That one didn't have a lottery. I don't know if they're going. I mean, some of these races might have gone to a lottery.
Mogollon it's so hard that it's not going to have one, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember them saying on their podcast that there's still spots, and it was like 6 weeks from the race. Sangre de Cristo. I mean, there were only, I think, 8 finishers this year. I don't know how many started and DNF'd. I have no idea. But, that one, you could go there and sign up the day of and run that race. So definitely more of a old school vibe if that's what you're looking for. Run Rabbit. at least when I did it, they didn't have a lottery. You just sign up and you're in the race. And I thought their rate was like pretty reasonable. It was less than $300, at least when I signed up. It might have gone up since. So yeah, I think those three didn't have lottery. I think the other hundreds I've done though have had lotteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Canyon doesn't have a lottery, but they have like what, 1,000 runners for that.
Yeah, if we're talking like non-hundreds, like one of my favorites is Never Summer, does not have a lottery, 100K. But I think the point that, with ending with this is that just because you don't get into one of those few races that have really intense competition for a lottery spot doesn't mean you can't do some just excellent races out there in the sport that are advancing the sport in terms of how difficult the courses are or how much fun the races are, how much the community supports those races are. All those races are great for those reasons and their own respectively.
Yeah, another thing I just thought of, race I did last, I guess early summer, late spring, World's End 100K. They didn't have a lottery. And I remember last year, like after the Western States lottery, I didn't get in, but it's a Western States qualifier, and they open up registration like the afternoon after the lottery. And I remember I went for, I guess, a walk, and I came back and I was like, okay, I'll sign up. I'm going to go sign up for World's End. And this is like 2 hours after they opened up registration, and I was like 80th on the wait list. So it was like races like that. Should they go to a lottery, or should they keep it where you have to, be, at your computer when the lottery or when registration's opens? Because I don't think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Either.
It's a tough question. Yeah. Because if you're a race director, you have to be the one to really answer it, and the answer you come up with is the one that is. Like
I eventually got in the race though after being 80th on the wait list. So.
Yeah. I mean, you can still get in on wait list.
Especially if you're flexible at the end, because when it gets close to the race list or the wait list will really turn over fast. Mm-hmm. And because it's so close to the race, a lot of people who are on that list already have plans and they'll turn down the spot. So you can really make some hay on the wait list if you're flexible.
Yeah, that's good to know. I know it's a bit stressful though, because you could be 2 weeks out and be like, well, I got this 100 to run now.
Like 3 weeks out, but like I saw how the wait list was trending like for a while heading up before, and I was like, yeah, I'm fairly certain I'm getting in. So I kind of made plans to run the race before I was officially in.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really close to doing Old Dominion this year. If I stayed in the lottery, I would have gotten in.
Yeah.
I saw, it's all good. I pulled out, and then like the next day they put everybody in. But I think this year worked out pretty well. We ended up going to Tahoe to hike the Tahoe Room Trail like a week later, so it was good.
Yeah, it worked out.
Nonetheless, I think we covered everything now. Say that with a question mark. I think that's a good way to put it, with a question mark at the end, because there's always going to be ways to make this better, especially as more people enter the sport, and there most likely end up being more lotteries in the sport. It's good that we have these conversations so that, assuming there are more lotteries, we can make the adjustments as...
Ouch.
Sorry, we're watching the World Cup, like I said before, and there's another Argentina goal right as we're finishing this up.
Calamitous gap.
Yeah, let's just call it at that. So 2-0 Argentina over Australia is the game we're watching. We're going to end it at that. I think we covered everything well. We hope this advances the sport. Once again, no hard feelings against any of these races. We just, we're passionate. We want to get in. We want other people who've put a lot of hard work to get in. So thank you guys for listening. Please leave your thoughts, comments, concerns if you're watching on, actually, we're not going to have this on YouTube. We didn't film it, but if you're listening, would love to hear your thoughts on either Instagram when I post this, or on Facebook, or if you leave a rating or review of the podcast, would love to hear your thoughts on this subject too. Don't think this is ever going to be a subject that ends up with a 100% perfect answer that appeases everybody, and that's what makes it so much fun to talk about in a way. So yeah, would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And yeah, I think that's everything. Reach out to me at journeyrunningsllc@gmail.com if you want to reach me directly, or journeyruncoaching.com, where I also offer different running plans if you are an athlete looking for a running coach. But yeah, thank you guys all for listening to this episode of the Journey Running Podcast, and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you.